Batteries expire. It is Friday afternoon here in the Philippines, and the big news for the Philippine pro wrestling space, and I thought was worth going on stream. This is my second ever live stream on YouTube. So, the big news that greeted Philippine wrestling fans this morning um, was the rumor that professional wrestler Jeff Cobb may be on his way to World Wrestling Entertainment (WWE). Jeff Cobb is also the reigning champion of Filipino Pro Wrestling (FPW). He won that championship by defeating Mike Madrigal here in the Philippines. And so, well, if the rumor is true that Jeff Cobb will be moving on to World Wrestling Entertainment, to WWE, then what happens to the FPW Championship? Well, a couple of possibilities here, which basically give you the same outcome. Um, Jeff Cobb is likely to uh, drop the championship. Now, how it happens, there's a couple of options, a couple of likely options. One, and this is I think the more ideal one for the Philippine wrestling fan. Um, One is that he flies back to the Philippines to defend the championship, uh, and loses it, right? Loses it to the next champion, whoever it is that beats him. The specifics of that kind of match will be up to FPW to decide. It could be a one-on-one match. It could be a multi-person title match. Um, Number two, uh, Jeff Cobb could just simply vacate the championship and return the physical belt, the title belt, back to the Philippines, while he wraps up his obligations with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Uh, it's I mean, it might take some time to fully assess how what Jeff Cobb's reign as FPW champion was like. You know how well it was, how good it was. Uh, but him winning the championship was such a huge moment in the Philippine professional wrestling scene, and for FPW in particular. Uh, because quite frankly, I think very few, if any, seriously thought that Cobb was going to walk out of the Philippines as the FPW champion. It's such a I've mentioned this. It's such a risky move for a promotion to make an outsider, someone who's not part of their regular roster, right? To make him the champion. Yes, he's a big name, but um, that's putting a lot of trust in a guy uh, who is primarily obligated, whose primary obligation is to a much bigger wrestling promotion. But still, Cobb has made multiple appearances in New Japan with the FPW Championship. That's amazing. That's amazing publicity for FPW. Um, in a perfect wrestling world, Cobb would have defended the FEW Championship in New Japan. Could have been anything, you know. Some could have been a storyline where someone starts beefing with Cobb, and then they challenge him for the championship, the FPW Championship, and then they have a match. Uh, I'm not sure if that will still happen. I hope it does before Cobb's reign comes to a close. I hope they can still do that, and then Cobb will have to come back. Well, either Cobb comes back or the belt comes back to the Philippines. Um, so anyway, FPW has several competitors, each staking their respective claim to be the number one contender. Um, and depending on the circumstances of Cobb's um, entry to WWE, uh, that fight over who is number one contender might just be upgraded to, well, let's have all you four people fight, and whoever wins is the new champion. That could happen. Uh, so right now, FPW has Robin, Chino Ginto, former FPW champion Mike Madrigal, and Quattro as the contenders. Mike Madrigal, the inaugural FPW champion, long 500 over 500-day reign as champion. Quattro, he is the hand-picked chosen one. He is the hand-picked guy of FPW owner Red Oliero to be the number one contender. And in fact, at the end of last year, he was baptized as the number one contender for the FPW championship. Um, Robin, she is she was racking up an impressive number of wins before getting injured. She came back from injury, and she's back on her winning ways, and she's taking her own claim to the championship. Chino Ginto, the Blessed One, he has a self-imposed condition where each match could be, once he loses a match, he is retiring. And that has motivated him to go undefeated in 2024. So these are your four contenders for the FPW Championship. Um, Depending how on I guess negotiations between Cobb and FPW, whether they can convince him to come back to the Philippines for another match or not. Uh, we could find out in a month or two, like how this situation will play out for FPW. Um, they could, let's say, assuming that Cobb vacates the championship, they could leave the championship vacant for a couple of months and perhaps run a tournament among the four contenders. Then again, Red Oliero has already anointed Quattro as his number one contender. So that kind of defeats the purpose of that decision if he agrees to make it a tournament. Um, I think if I was Red, I would back my original decision to have Quattro as my number one contender, and I would push that. I would push that and do whatever it takes to validate Quattro's status, whether it means him winning fairly or not. There are storylines. There are storylines among the different contenders. Chino Ginto has that self-imposed condition where if he loses a match, he's retiring. And as a fan, I don't think he should retire right now. I don't think he should. I think, uh, I think he's made it this far, and I would like to see him get that title shot. Um, Him winning it, I don't know, but I don't want to see him like enter a tournament for to be the next champion and then he loses, right? Anyway, this is all going to be in Red Oliero's hands. He is the owner and booker for FPW, so we'll see how it plays out. It may take some time to fully assess the impact of Jeff Cobb's championship reign with as for FPW, and we'll see how that plays out. Uh, overall as of this point, I think it was a good move. I think it was a good promotional move on the part of FPW. Um, so we'll see, maybe a year or so later, whether that assessment remains the same or has improved. But overall, it was a risky move. It was a risk on the part of FPW to make Jeff Cobb their champion, and I think it paid off pretty well for them. Him possibly vacating the championship would be a hit, could be a hit, could be seen as a negative hit, but I think it's just part of the risk of the business, right? And I think FPW can still capitalize on that if Cobb decides to vacate the championship instead of flying back to the Philippines for one more match. Anyhow, that's it. Uh, tomorrow is Saturday. It's the weekend. We have a wrestling show coming up. It's WrestleStorm. I'm gonna be there, so I hope you have a good time, and I hope you all have a good weekend. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your time to watch this live stream. See yous.